Paul Petrides was a British art dealer who lived in Paris, France during the Nazi occupation of France in World War II. Paul was known for obtaining many Jewish collectors' paintings and other artworks illegally, but to survive the wrath of the Nazis, he handed over some of his most valuable artworks, one of these artworks being Pierre-Auguste Renoir's Seated Nude. Seated Nude is an oil canvas painting created in 1885 during the rejection of Impressionism period of art. Renoir himself was a Frenchman most widely known for developing the Impressionistic style of art. His artworks are known for celebrating the beauty and sensuality of females. Renoir's artworks became inspiration for future artists like Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse. Paul Petrides handed over the Renoir painting along with many others after the Nazis successfully occupied France in 1941. The Nazi organization responsible for receiving the EER is a Nazi organization ran by Alfred Rosenberg, whose mission was to appropriate cultural property during World War II. With the help of the occupation, Nazis would change laws that allowed them to legally obtain artworks from citizens' homes. Due to this legalization of art taking, there is a funny line between whether or not artworks can return to the original owners or to the nation of origin. Research shows that Seated Nude by Renoir was originally traded along with 17 other artworks to Petrides in exchange for a portrait of a young woman. This was done because Petrides, along with other dealers, traded artworks with Nazis to gain possession of old master paintings. Portrait of a Young Woman was painted back in the 16th century by Rembrandt, a native Dutchman. Portrait of a Young Woman was not the only famous painting traded by Petrides in the EER. There was a reported 700 paintings and artworks traded between Frenchmen dealers and the Nazi organization. Petrides, along with 3 other art dealers in France, were infamously known for trading between the EER and Hermann Göring himself. Hermann Göring was the key art dealer for the Nazis. Göring was in charge of retrieving endless art classics for none other than Hitler himself. He was famous for taking particular artworks for himself, especially if he thought that Hitler would not enjoy them. Once the ERR had possession of Seated Nude and many other artworks, they were taken to the Jeu de Paume in Paris, France. It was at the Jeu de Paume that Göring selected the artworks that would be sent to Hitler for his Linz museum and which would be sent to Göring's private home. Any paintings selected for transportation were put onto Göring's personal train for transport to Germany. Old master paintings are categorized as paintings that were created during the Renaissance period. There are detail and skill in them that make their. The reason the ERR wanted the painting Seated Nude by Renoir rather than the old master painting it was traded for is because it was considered a degenerate artwork. Degenerate artwork was defined by Hitler as a non-classical artwork that showed odd forms and expressed many things other than abnormal images. The Nazis used degenerate artworks to fund their war efforts by selling them for cheap prices in auctions and by having a tourist museum that would pay people to make fun of their artworks. Renoir, among Picasso, Van Gogh, Matisse, and other artists, were considered degenerate artists. Today, the location of Seated Nude by Renoir is unknown. Intensive research has shown that the painting goes missing after 1941 when Göring selects the artwork for himself or for Hitler. It is not clear who received the artwork. Hitler had multiple art-stealing sections of the Nazi army for one reason. Back before World War I, Hitler had applied a total of 3 times to an art school in Germany, but was declined each time. He was declined for lacking creativity and emotion with his famous watercolor paintings. Hitler, however, did not agree with the school's critiques because he thought that all art should be realistic and outward in its portrayal, meaning that what the viewer sees from the painting is exactly what it means, not that there are double meanings behind the artworks and that there are no symbols within the artwork. Once Hitler became the Führer, he wanted nothing more than to create a museum of the most famous global artworks in his hometown of Linz, Austria. Nude, along with many other paintings lost during World War II, are culturally significant today because they all represent a moment of history that is important to all nations. Seated nude represents the turmoil and defiance often shown in World War II because it wasn't accepted as art by Hitler, and it is still lost or destroyed today.